a kind of, I guess, review, but also a kind of overview of the battles that I did when we went to the September Scuffle. And so during those fights, it's just going to be some basic overview. You kind of get to see what the fights look like. Looking at some of the fights that I did recently in a competition. You may or may not have seen these videos by another YouTuber named Scuffed Roboticist. I'll put a link down to his channel in the description, but let's go ahead and begin looking at some of these fights, including drum rolls. So the first one we have is drumroll versus Avatron. If you follow my mouse right here, right underneath my screen thing should be the driver of Avatron. See me over here. So this robot right here, you may not have seen before, depending on if you keep up with the posts on this channel. This one right here is called drumroll. It hits with about 700 pounds of force, even though it is Lego. And yeah, he kept saying he didn't want to tap out, so wasn't too much I could do in this fight except just keep going.
Oh my goodness. Let it going. Tap out. Stop,
And then they
stop,
tapped out.
The winner's drum roll.
And then we have drumroll versus US Bug right here. Kind of the same results. Thought I might lose this fight just because it's a horizontal, but then they drove into a wall and slowed down their own weapon. And then I completely flipped them. Also a fairly fast fight. And we have drumroll versus Black Ops. This is actually interesting because the driver of Black Ops right here was actually one of my students for building BattleBots at one point. So it was interesting to see how much they've learned and so on and so forth. In times like this, it kind of looks like the weapon slows down, but the thing is that it's just spinning fast enough that it's actually keeping up with the frame rate of the video. It never actually stops spinning. So yeah, hold on, let's rewind this real quick so you can watch what happened there more closely. So we have drumroll versus Operation Rolling Thunder. Couldn't fit the full name. But yeah, you can see their whole weapon subassembly just flies out. I can actually self-right like that, as you just saw. So even if they do manage to flip me, it's not too much trouble. And another tap out.
Okay. You're recording? All right, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, fight!
Yeah, so this one was an interesting fight because this also over here was one of my students. Fight didn't last that long, kind of like all the other ones. But it's still fun to do these fights. Yeah, and then for this last one, this was the one fight I lost, which ended up getting me second place, which I'm pretty happy about. But you can see, if I pause it real quick, we actually had a lot of rain during this event. So if you follow my mouse on here, you can actually see my robots just dripping out water right here. And that's because my robot kind of got drenched while I was helping secure some of the canopies that were there. And so I'll point it out when it happens, but if you wait, the battery box actually just kind of, so right here, you'll notice this whole side of the robot right here no longer works. That's because this battery box right here got soaked. So I can no longer turn correctly at this point in time. And so I kind of got beat up, but overall it was still a fun fight because it was still pretty challenging. Had the other battery box worked, I'm not sure how it would have turned out. Might have been good, might have been bad. But yeah.
So, are you able to drive?
So it did end up being a tie because of that. However, I think during our next competition, this is the fight we're going to be doing first to see who would have won this fight. It won't affect the scores. Scuff Roboticist will have still gotten first place, and I still would have gotten second place. But overall, this was a really fun competition. So let's talk about for the future of this channel and different BattleBot stuff. And here you can see a BattleBot that I've been working on. I will not include the file in the description because I don't want anyone copying this part for part, just because you wouldn't really learn anything like that. And so if you do have an idea similar to this, I want you to try and design it by yourself. Otherwise, it'd just be giving you the answer. And so this is what I plan on building and bringing to competition next. Theoretically, it should have the exact same hit strength as drumroll, as we saw previously, because it's, even though it's a lighter weapon that it's going to be using about a 200-gram weapon or so, it's going to be spinning much faster at about 4,000 RPM. And so the whole idea of designing a different chassis like this compared to drumroll's chassis, which has no armor, is for two reasons right now. One reason is if we zoom in right here, you're actually able to see that I have some mechanical components going on in here. And that is for specifically when I'm pushing people around with this robot, or let's say my weapon malfunctions at some point in the fight, I want to be able to switch my robot into a lower gearing and be able to push people more effectively. And then when I'm done with that, I can switch to a higher gearing, zoom around, they can't catch me while my weapon is slowly charging back up. The other thing for this that makes it really good is it's four-wheel drive. Now, every other four-wheel drive robot that I have seen in LEGO uses chains. But the whole benefit of using this system right here that I have is that you'll notice I'm not using chains, I'm actually using an axle. And this axle runs all the way through to this side and connects to that wheel right there. So theoretically, if all goes to plan, it should work out really well and actually be a very viable robot. The whole shifter mechanism is just working on the fact that there is a mechanical stop on this side, so it can only swing 90 degrees to each side, and this rubber piece keeps it locked in place right there. So that's the plans for future BattleBots, and so yeah, as always,